So I was supposed to go last, so I'm just going to improvise a little bit here. You know, we welcome you guys. I wish you could be sitting here seeing what I'm seeing. You know, I grew up in Alief in Southwest Houston. And in the early 90s, it was murder capital of the world. I have friends of mine that lost limbs from drive-by shootings. I have friends of mine nowadays that have a glass eye. The right eye is a glass eye. My best friend at the age of 15 was so overwhelmed with the pressure of growing up in Alief that he shot himself. And the bullet came in with a .38, came in and came out, and they had to cut out part of his brain. He didn't die, but he ended up on a wheelchair. And that happened in the living room of the person who I am now married to. So I know my wife since we were 12 years old growing up in Alief. There was a gang back in the days called La Familia. And I spoke to then Sheriff Adrian Garcia about this because he was in the anti-gang task force appointed by Bob Lanier when he was mayor. And when I told him, what do you know about La Familia? He said, you know, all I know is that they were in Alief and we were looking for the guy who was leading that gang. And I told him, I'm that person. I was a leader of La Familia growing up. I left to Colombia, South America, after an attempt on my life. I grew up in Alief not understanding as a Colombian from South America what it really meant to have community relations with law enforcement. Because even though I was a quarterback in 7th grade walking to my middle school, I knew that linebackers were not my friends, right? If you're a quarterback, linebackers are coming for you, right? To tackle you. My first interaction with law enforcement was getting out from Kilo Middle School, and because there was too many of us to walk on the sidewalk, I was walking on the very edge of the street, and a police car came and said, get on the sidewalk, right? Screamed assertively, commanding. We all got on the sidewalk, but we didn't fit. He left. I got back on the very edge of the street. When he came back around, he got out. I must have been 13 years old. And he grabbed me by the back of my shirt and slammed me on top of the hood. Handcuffed me and put me in the back of the cop car. That was my first interaction with law enforcement. So being a quarterback, knowing linebackers are not my friends, I said, these guys are a different type of linebackers. So that was our interaction. They're not on my side, they're not on my team. As I grew up, my parents being from Colombia, South America, come in as immigrants, as many of us do. They come to America to give us as their children a better life. In Colombia, we can sit with law enforcement and have coffee and relax and talk. Over here, they start panicking if they're gonna get pulled over. They think somebody can go to jail. So on the offset, when we look at race or color, and we say that justice is about being colorblind, that in and of itself is a problem. Because if we want to be colorblind in the context of justice, it assumes that there's an equality amongst people. But there's not really an equality because the neighborhood where I grew up, majority African American and Latino, has a different social construct based on the economic situation happening in that neighborhood. So when you're Black or Latino, you're going through certain restraints on a day-to-day while you're dealing with family life that may be experienced systematically, just from the system and what we're given, okay? My parents didn't know how to speak English. When you have a language barrier, right, and you have to have your son translate for you even to hook up a phone. Back in the days, you know, you had land phones, right? You become a translator, right, for grown people who are supposed to be giving you guidance. So before we know it, as youth, we're like, man, my parents don't even know where we live. So you can't get advice from parents. So what happens to a youth who doesn't get advice from parents? Looks at law enforcement like they're not on their side. That's where gangs form. And the gangs formed back in those days after school, in a time when there's no adult supervision, from 3 to 6. And we've been at the 911 center some years back with the chief of police then, and I mentioned to them, if you guys are having some sort of resources given to society for gangs, where is that money going? Well, it's going to the neighborhood centers. But those neighborhood centers, no real gangster is going to show up and say, hey, where's the class for gangsters? So those resources are not reaching the people. And so what we ended up doing was looking at some of the research, and we found that there's a Harvard research that shows that Black Americans are 3.23 times more likely than white Americans to be killed by police. This is statistics. This is from Harvard. The researchers went on to examine 5,494 cases in police-related deaths in the US between the year 2013 and 2017. And an estimated 2,600 Latinos were killed by police when making arrest or while in custody. But the Latino population are at a disadvantage when it comes to trends and numbers, because even the way the Census Bureau categorizes Latinos, it's a bit awkward because they try to put us in a racial profile. People from Chile and Argentina are European descendants, so they're categorized as white. Latinos from Colombia, there's on the side of Colombia in regards to the coast, everyone's an Afro-descendant. And when you look at Panamanians, right, they're Black. So we're not put into the category of a Latino. It's segmented as Black and white. So these numbers are actually not accurate. But what is accurate is the sentiments and feelings. And when we look at the imagery of media, I actually went and studied at the Art Institute of Houston. And I graduated from the field of media and multimedia when it comes to filmmaking. I had to study statistics to then be able to anthropologically show media in the sense of how the makeup of society works. And when you look at Muslims, being a Muslim nowadays, you look at the way that Muslims are portrayed in the media is the worst from any sort of race, quote unquote, even though it's not a race. It's people who believe in one God and that are multiracial, as we see here. We're of different colors, different backgrounds. And so when we look at the language being used regarding minorities, what we want to know from law enforcement nowadays is how real can a serious dialogue and relationship be, so that we can go back to our communities and let them know these people are here to serve and protect. And that's why we really appreciate you guys coming. And I'll end with this. We 2 years ago, we purchased a 2.5-acre property right under the water tower in Alief, in the neighborhood where we grew up. We have a 10,000 square foot facility, the only Spanish-speaking Islamic center in America. We were invited to the White House in 2017 by the Obama administration. We've been featured by National Geographic. What we want to do is go back to the neighborhood and resolve some of the issues that we experienced when we were growing up. And there's amazing work that we can do when we look at you as people serving and protecting, but we have to get to know one another. So we commend you for coming here. We respect your service. We hope you become the best Houstonian, the best person to represent and serve your country, your state, and we are rooting for you. We're now on the same team. And we really hope that all of our faiths, or whatever it is that we believe in the human race, not Black and white and Latino. And we appreciate you coming today. This is really uplifting for us. And the more that we can have these sort of dialogues and communication, we hope that you do serve and protect in the best interest of all of us. So thank you very much.
Next, please.